Welcome back to Life's Challenge. My name is Avital, and this week's Parsha is Parsha Tetzaveh. And Parsha Tetzaveh is a really cool Parsha. It focuses in great detail on the clothing that the Kohanim were going to wear during their service. The Kohanim were the priests, the ones who performed services in the temple and the tabernacle for the Jewish people. They sort of did the offering services. They prayed on behalf of the people. They were sort of the ones who worked within the temple framework in service of God. And the Kohanim, it talks about, yes, their clothing, and it also talks about the sort of anointment process for the Kohanim. That in order to prepare themselves for service, they'd have to bring offerings, they'd have to immerse themselves in a mikveh and a ritual bath, and that they needed to wear these garments. And I was talking to my mom about this parsha, and something really stood out to her that I thought was quite interesting. And that is this. The Torah says, "The holy vestments of Aaron shall belong to his sons after him to become elevated through him. For a 7-day period, the Kohen who succeeds him from his sons, who shall enter the tent of meeting to serve in the sanctuary, shall don them." So Aaron, Moses' brother, was going to be the Kohen Gadol, the high priest, sort of the priest in charge of all the other priests, the priest who had the highest status and who performed the most services and who really was the one who was in charge. And Aaron hadn't even started his role yet as Kohen Gadol, and the Torah is already telling us what the succession process is, that the one who succeeds Aaron will be his sons, and that sort of it's a direct line, that it's constantly going to be sort of father to son, father to son, father to son for the Kohen Gadol, and that position is going to be filled by his descendants. And that in order to sort of take over Aaron's place, that they would wear Aaron's clothing, sort of the garments of the Kohen Gadol for 7 days, and then they would be the Kohen Gadol. And we thought this was really interesting because, again, Aaron hasn't even started his service yet, and yet they're telling us what's going to happen after Aaron is complete, once Aaron passes away, and who's going to succeed after him. And that's a really interesting concept. Why is it that they're telling us this plan before he has even begun his job? And the conclusion sort of that we came to was because the Torah is teaching us that it's really important to think about what happens next. That in this role for Kohen Gadol, it came with a certain set of values, a certain lifestyle, a certain knowledge, and that if it was going to be passed on and it was an important role, an important enough position, then you had to plan ahead for the future, for the what-ifs, for the unknowns, the uncertainties, and to have this plan set up in place so that it wasn't going to be like one day Aaron dies and everybody's like, I don't know what to do. Who's going to be Kohen Gadol? And then it's going to get into arguments. I'm more worthy, and I have status. No, I have status. Here, there's a plan. It's a plan set up of after Aaron, it's going to be his sons. And in our own lives, I think that that's something important for us to think about too. Not only for what happens to us after we die, which is very important and hard to look at, but also for what happens while we're still here. There can be other transitions in life besides death, like you have a contract for a few years at a job, what's going to happen next? You set up a plan for a certain amount of time. What happens when you've reached the end of your, let's say, 5-year plans? What happens in year 6? It's important to be looking ahead towards the future and to be creating plans. That way you're not taken by surprise when year 6 comes along and you're like, I don't know what to do now. I only planned for 5 years. And so it's important to be thinking about the future. It's important to be thinking ahead. And when it does come to planning for life after we have passed on, thinking about something like having a will, which is sort of our succession plan for what happens to all of our assets and our belongings and whatever it is that we own, what's going to happen to that after we die, which saves, again, our descendants from argument, from confusion, from all of these uncertainties. Having a plan removes that uncertainty and gives the best likelihood for success that the values, that our desires, that our hopes are going to be carried on to future generations. And so I think that's a very beautiful lesson we can learn from this week's Parsha. I wish you all a wonderful week and a Shabbat Shalom, and I look forward to speaking with you next time.